Hello, Leo. Welcome to Eternal Mindfulness, where cosmic wisdom meets grounded transformation. Let me start with a bold truth. Something inside you is dying, and that's a beautiful thing. You didn't just click on this video out of curiosity. You were pulled here. Drawn by a silent whisper from the universe, the kind that only you, brave-hearted Leo, can truly hear. Because something is shifting, isn't it? Maybe you've been feeling like your old self doesn't quite fit anymore. The roles you used to play, the masks you used to wear, they're starting to crack. You might be wondering, why do I feel so restless, even when everything seems fine on the outside? And that, Leo, is the sign. A sacred invitation to step into the next version of you, the one that isn't performing for applause, but standing in truth. The one that knows. Before destiny can enter, something must be released. In this reading, I'm going to walk you through a powerful three-part transformation that 2025 is bringing into your life. A funeral for the past. A wedding of the soul. And a fortune that's not just about money, but about meaning. And no, none of this is random. You're not here by accident. This moment, this video, this message, it's a mirror. A reflection of what your spirit already knows. You're standing at a threshold, Leo. A portal. Behind you is everything you've outgrown. Ahead of you is everything you've been secretly praying for. But here's the twist. The door to abundance, love, and purpose won't open through effort alone. It opens through release. Through surrender. Through soul trust. So ask yourself right now, what am I still clinging to that no longer serves me? What part of me is afraid to let go, even though I know it's time? This video will help you answer those questions, and more. Now, before we dive deep, let me ask you for a small but powerful gesture. Drop a comment below with an angel number that's been appearing to you lately, or simply the number that your spirit feels most aligned with right now. It's not just for fun, it's your energetic handshake with the universe. And let me take a moment to say this, sincerely. Thank you for being here. Every like, every comment, every subscription you've shared brings life to this channel and helps Eternal Mindfulness grow into the cosmic sanctuary it's meant to be. Your presence is a gift. Your support is sacred. And I promise you, Leo, you're going to want to stay until the very end. Because what the universe is revealing today is breathtaking. So now, tell me in the comments. What brought you here today? And are you truly ready to let something die so you can finally live? Let's begin. It often begins in the most unexpected moments, not with a big breakthrough or a dramatic event, but with a subtle shift inside you. A feeling that maybe, just maybe, you don't need to prove anything anymore. That your worth is not something to be earned, but something you carry within you, like light held quietly in the palms of your spirit. For Leo, whose essence is so deeply tied to being seen, this realization is not just humbling, it is transformative. The energy of this moment asks you to soften into something unfamiliar, receiving without resistance. You've spent so long shining for others, trying to meet expectations, feeling the pressure to be perfect, inspiring, invincible. But what if your real power lies not in striving, but in stillness? What if wealth, true wealth, isn't measured by the gold you wear or the applause you receive, but by how fully you allow yourself to feel enough in silence. This shift is subtle, yet powerful. And it's not just about money. It's about healing the fractured relationship with your own self-worth. The universe, in its infinite rhythm, is offering you opportunities, not only financially, but emotionally and spiritually, to reinforce the truth that you are enough just as you are. That you don't need to chase success in order to deserve peace. This is where the energy of the Sun and Ace of Pentacles enters, a pairing in tarot that speaks not only of prosperity but of confidence restored, purpose realigned, and joy rediscovered. It's a new beginning that says, the life you long for is already orbiting around you. But it can only land if you allow yourself to receive it. Receiving is not passive. It is one of the most courageous acts you can do. It requires dropping the armor, letting go of control, and believing you are worthy of the blessing even when you don't feel ready. And perhaps more importantly, to trust that the blessing won't disappear just because you pause to breathe. There's an old truth often spoken in whispers: when we stop grasping, the right things come. Just like a flower opens not by force, but by aligning with the warmth of the sun, your abundance flows best when you stop trying to push and simply start saying yes. So ask yourself, have I ever turned away from a gift because I thought I hadn't earned it? Have I quietly sabotaged my own receiving because deep down, I feared it was too good to be true? Let this be the chapter where you practice a new kind of strength, not in doing, but in allowing. Allow yourself to be supported. Allow your efforts to bear fruit. Allow joy without explanation. Allow compliments to land. And when someone says, you deserve it, try saying, thank you, instead of brushing it off. Each morning, write down one thing you are proud of, not something you achieved, but something you embodied. Maybe it was your kindness, your resilience, your honesty. Let that be enough. Because it is enough. And when someone offers you praise, receive it like sunlight, gently, gratefully, and fully. Don't deflect it. Let it nourish you, because it's simply a reflection of the light you've already been giving. There is a wisdom that says, the tree doesn't hurry to bloom. It grows, it roots, it trusts the rhythm of life. In the same way, your abundance will not come from constant effort alone. It will come when you begin to trust the rhythm of your own becoming, when you no longer feel the need to earn your light, but simply allow yourself to be it. So breathe. Unclench. And say yes. Yes to what wants to enter. Yes to the version of you that no longer performs to be loved, but simply lives from love itself. Yes to the fortune that's already knocking, and has been, for a long time. It's strange how quiet endings can be. They rarely come with fireworks or grand speeches. Often, it's just a look that lingers too long, a silence that lasts a beat too many, or the subtle shift in how someone says your name. And yet, those small moments can mark the beginning of something far greater than any chapter you've closed before. Relationships are never really about the other person. At their core, they are reflections, mirrors that show you who you believe you are, what you think you deserve, and how willing you are to be truly seen. For Leo, a sign born from the heart, love is not a casual thing. You don't just feel, you radiate. When you love, you give completely. And when that love is no longer reciprocated, it's not just a breakup. It feels like the world has tilted off its axis. But in truth, what you're experiencing isn't destruction. It's realignment. Sometimes, a person's presence in your life was never meant to be permanent. Their purpose wasn't to stay, but to reveal. To show you the contours of your longing, the cracks in your own armor, or the places where you still needed to remember yourself. And so when someone begins to fade or fall away, it may not be rejection. It may simply be that their role in your story is complete. There's an ancient teaching that reminds us, nothing that is truly yours can ever be lost. If something or someone is no longer part of your path, perhaps it was never meant to journey with you beyond this point. And in that letting go, you are not left with less. You are returned to your own wholeness. The reversed Lover's card appearing in this moment is not a sign of failure, but of clarity. It invites you to question the attachments that once defined you. Who are you when you're not someone's partner, someone's hero, someone's emotional anchor? When the expectations fall away, what remains? That question isn't meant to scare you. It's meant to free you. What follows, then, is the star. The gentle glimmer after the storm. The quiet knowing that healing has already begun. That perhaps the true gift of this ending is not found in closure with another, but in the opening it creates inside of you. An opening for softness, for self-compassion, for the kind of inner connection no one else can give. You may be tempted to resist. To cling to the familiarity of what once was. But even the most majestic of lions must, at some point, release its roar into the wilderness, not to lose itself, but to remember its natural rhythm. So if you feel something shifting, don't chase after it. Sit with it. Write that letter, the one you'll never send, and let it carry all the things you couldn't say aloud. Let it be a form of release, not retaliation. Then ask yourself gently, who am I becoming now? You might be surprised by the answer. In truth, this is not a story about love lost. It's a story about self-reclaimed. Every person who leaves your life frees up space, not just in your calendar, but in your energy, your heart, your voice. What will you do with that space now? Let it be a sacred return. Not to who you were, but to who you were always meant to be, before the roles, before the expectations, before the need to be needed. There is a kind of rebirth that happens not with a scream, but with a sigh. And you, Leo, are ready for that quiet miracle. There are times when silence speaks more powerfully than words ever could. After the noise of letting go, after the echo of an identity reshaped by change, there comes a strange and sacred stillness, a pause that invites you not to perform, not to fix, not to achieve, but simply to be. This is the space you may find yourself entering now, Leo. Not because you've failed to shine, but because your light is learning a new language, one that doesn't depend on applause. The truth is, people often misunderstand you. They see the charisma, the warmth, the fire in your eyes and think you crave the spotlight. But what you really long for is to be seen, not just for what you do, but for who you are when the curtains close. This longing doesn't make you weak. It makes you honest. And in this chapter, that honesty is becoming your compass. The energies of the Hermit and the High Priestess in this phase are not here to isolate you, but to draw you deeper inward. They don't ask for action. They invite awareness. You are being asked to pause not because you've lost your way, but because your path is unfolding in silence. And the more still you become, the more clearly you can hear what truly matters. This moment may feel like a void. But look closer, it's not emptiness, it's spaciousness. It's the kind of pause that allows the dust to settle, the heart to recalibrate. It's what happens when the river stops raging and begins to reflect. What you'll discover here isn't something new. It's something ancient, something you've always known but never had the stillness to remember. In teachings that center on presence and awareness, there's a recurring truth, that suffering often comes not from pain itself, but from our refusal to face it. When you allow yourself to sit with discomfort, to look at your fears, your insecurities, your aching, you begin to see them soften. They stop chasing you when you stop running. They become, surprisingly, less threatening when you meet them with gentle attention. This is the strength that's being cultivated within you now. Not the roaring kind, but the silent, grounded kind, the strength of sitting still with your own truth. The strength of not needing to be on all the time. The strength of giving yourself permission to rest, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Let this be a time when you tend to the inner temple. Choose one day each week to unplug from the noise. No notifications. No distractions. Just you, your breath, and whatever rises in the quiet. Light a candle, hold a warm cup of tea, sit in front of a small space you call sacred. It doesn't have to look like anything. It just needs to feel like home to your nervous system. As you do this, you may notice subtle shifts. You respond instead of react. You speak with more clarity. You listen with more compassion. You begin to realize that peace isn't found in escaping life, it's found in meeting it fully, from the inside out. There's a quiet confidence that emerges from those who've spent time alone with their truth. They carry a steadiness that doesn't need to prove itself. A calm that doesn't depend on circumstances. That's the kind of peace waiting for you now, Leo, not loud, not flashy, but unshakable. And when you're ready to return to the world, you'll do so not because you need to be seen, but because you know who you are, with or without the spotlight. And that, Leo, is a radiance no stage could ever offer. Not every fire needs to burn bright to be real. Some flames live quietly beneath the surface, steady, warm, and unwavering. And maybe this is the moment when your fire is no longer about proving, performing, or impressing. Maybe now, it's about learning how to keep your own light company without needing it to blind the world. You've already walked through the letting go. You've met yourself in the quiet. Now, the invitation is to find peace in the space between, the tender middle where outward brilliance and inner stillness are no longer at odds. There's a kind of exhaustion that comes from always having to appear okay. For Leo, whose nature is often tied to leadership, courage, and presence, there can be pressure to be emotionally invincible, to shine for others even when you're dim inside. But the truth is, that effort to hold it all together can become a mask that slowly drains your spirit. There's no freedom in performing wholeness. Real strength is knowing when to take the mask off, even if only in the privacy of your own heart. This next part of your journey asks you to soften into something radical, self-acceptance. Not the polished kind that comes with conditions or praise, but the kind that holds your shadow just as gently as your light. When the Strength card appears in this context, it doesn't speak to dominance or control. It reflects the courage to live with an open heart. It reminds you that compassion begins within. That grace is not something you give only when you're finished healing. It's something that helps the healing begin. You don't need to live up to every image projected onto you. You don't need to glow constantly to prove your worth. There's power in being visible and still choosing silence. There's wisdom in stepping off the stage, not because you've failed to deliver, but because you've finally realized you don't owe anyone a performance. The lion does not lose its crown when it rests in the tall grass. It simply returns to its nature. Sometimes, this inner conflict, between what the world expects and what you authentically feel, mirrors an ancient teaching, that suffering often arises when we resist the present moment. When we try to be elsewhere, someone else, doing something other than what is true right now. So what if, instead of resisting, you simply allowed what is here to be here? What if you gave yourself permission to not be on, to not have the answer, to not please everyone? Let your own rhythms guide you. Ask yourself, who am I still trying to impress? And what would change if I stopped trying? Notice the tension in your body as you ask this. And then ask, when do I feel most relieved, most light, most like myself? The answers might not be loud, but they will be honest. And honesty is the foundation of every true transformation. As you navigate this space between visibility and vulnerability, let color be your companion. Champagne gold, soft, dignified, luminous without needing to shout, can be a reminder of your inner elegance. Deep violet red, a hue of transformation, of death and rebirth, symbolizes your shift from external power to internal truth. Let these be not just visual cues, but emotional anchors. Symbols of the self you are no longer afraid to embody. You are not leaving the spotlight. You are simply expanding your definition of what it means to shine. You are not turning away from your fire. You're learning how to tend to it gently, to honor it when it flickers, to celebrate it when it glows. And in doing so, you teach others that real light doesn't scream. It radiates, steadily, generously, and from within. There comes a point when the search turns inward. After all the striving, shedding, releasing, and reimagining, you arrive not at a destination, but at a homecoming. Not to a place, but to a presence within yourself that has been patiently waiting for your return. This isn't about perfection or enlightenment. It's about recognition. About meeting yourself not as a project to fix, but as a being to honor. And perhaps this is what this part of your journey is asking of you, Leo, to stand still long enough to witness who you've become, and to finally say, I do. This isn't just poetic language. There's a quiet power in rituals that mark transitions, not because they change who we are, but because they allow us to acknowledge the change that has already occurred. In this case, it's the sacred act of committing to yourself. After the inner clearing, the release of old relationships, the surrender of the need to perform, what remains is an opportunity to devote yourself, fully and freely, to the person you've uncovered beneath it all. The world and Four of Wands together speak of culmination and celebration, but not in the way society usually defines it. This is not a wedding to someone else, but a vow to your inner being, the part of you that has endured without applause, grown in the shadows, and softened through pain. It is a celebration of arrival, of embodiment, of becoming whole. This is your invitation to turn inward with reverence and say, I promise to no longer abandon myself. Visualize this like a ceremony. No stage, no crowd, no expectations. Just you, maybe barefoot, maybe laughing, maybe even crying, but completely present. If you were to dress for this moment, would it be in softness? Would it be something symbolic, like gold for your inner radiance or deep crimson to honor your passion and rebirth? And what would you whisper to yourself in that moment? What promise would you finally be brave enough to make? There's a teaching that reminds us, true freedom is not found by running toward more, but by resting in what is already here. And what is here now is you, no longer defined by others, no longer trapped in stories of lack, no longer waiting to be chosen. You are both the guest and the host, the seeker and the found. And what you offer yourself now is not just love, but presence, patience, and peace. This kind of vow is quiet but lasting. It's not made through grand gestures, but through everyday choices. Choosing not to shrink when you feel vulnerable. Choosing to rest when your body asks, even if your mind resists. Choosing to speak kindly to yourself on days when everything feels heavy. Choosing joy even when it feels unfamiliar. These are your sacred vows, the invisible strings that weave your spirit into something whole. In astrology, the Leo archetype is often linked to romance and expression, but its deeper lesson is sovereignty. The kind that doesn't depend on validation, the kind that shines even when no one is watching. This is your season to reclaim that sovereignty, not with dominance, but with devotion. Not to another, but to yourself. So ask yourself now, if you were to stand across from your truest self, what would you say? What would you thank them for? And what promise would you offer them for the life ahead? This isn't the end of your journey. But it is a sacred pause, a moment to acknowledge how far you've come, and to consciously choose the version of yourself you wish to walk forward with. And when you do, the world, both within and around you, will begin to mirror back that choice. Because when you say yes to yourself, fully and unapologetically, everything else begins to align. You don't have to roar anymore, Leo. Not to be heard. Not to be seen. And certainly not to prove that you are powerful. Because your power has never truly lived in the volume of your voice, it has always rested in the quiet confidence behind your eyes, the grounded grace of your presence, and the unwavering rhythm of your heart when you walk forward in truth. This year isn't asking you to become someone else. It's not about glowing harder, loving louder, or achieving more. It's about letting go of all the old definitions of who you thought you had to be in order to be worthy. The masks. The performances. The roles you outgrew long ago but kept playing to keep others comfortable. 2025 isn't your next chapter, it's your sacred reset. A homecoming to the version of you that never needed approval to exist, just permission to take up space. As you reflect on this journey, the endings you've had to grieve, the shifts you've had to accept, the fire you've had to tend, ask yourself, am I still chasing someone else's vision of success? Or am I finally ready to build a life rooted in what matters to me? If you felt misunderstood, unseen, or stretched too thin lately, know that the universe hasn't turned away from you. It has simply been redirecting you inward, reminding you that you are your own center of gravity. You are the sun of your own orbit. And it's time to stop revolving around expectations that were never truly yours to begin with. So maybe now is the time to take the pieces you've reclaimed and weave them into something more honest. Not perfect. Just real. Real joy. Real presence. Real wholeness. You've walked through the fire, Leo, not to be hardened by it, but to be refined into the version of you that no longer needs applause to feel alive. Pause with me for a moment, and breathe that in. You've always had what you needed. But now, you know that. And that knowing is the difference between living in survival and living with sovereignty. So let me ask you, what is one value you refuse to compromise on anymore? What is one truth you're finally ready to live out loud, even if no one else claps for it? And if you could leave one version of yourself behind in 2024, what would it be? If this video resonated with you, even just one line, one image, one reminder, I invite you to anchor that feeling by doing something intentional, like, share this message with someone you love, and comment below with an angel number that speaks to your journey right now. Think of it as a cosmic signature, a way to say, I'm here. I'm awake. I'm ready. And above all else, thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing me to walk beside you, even briefly, on this path. Your presence is not only seen, it is felt deeply. Every moment you spend with this channel helps build a community where real healing, real evolution, and real conversation can exist. So if you haven't already, I welcome you to subscribe to Eternal Mindfulness. Because this isn't just a channel, it's a sanctuary. A shared space for all of us learning to live from the inside out. You don't need to change who you are. You only need to remember who you've always been. And trust me, Leo, the world is ready. Are you?